Well, I think now is as good a time as any to start off. We've got a full hour with Sherry Ogasawara from Northern Health and the College of New Caledonia. But first, I wanted to introduce myself. I am Sarah Lucina, and I'm working with the Active Aging Society, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to yet another Move and Connect webinar. So I'm joining here on this call from the unceded and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, what is colonially known as North Vancouver. And for me, acknowledging the lands that we're joining from is one small but really, really important step on the journey of reconciliation. For me, when I acknowledge the land that I'm joining from, it triggers me to think about who was here before us and what happened and how we got here today and what we'd like our future to look like and what makes community healthy and how in our role at the Active Aging Society and with our collaborators at the Active Aging Research Team, how we can foster and promote health for everybody, older adults and elders included. I know that we have folks joining from across BC, and it was wonderful to see everybody popping in their hometowns in the chat. If you want to also include the traditional territory that you are joining from, you are welcome to do that now and throughout the presentation. Now, I want to just give a quick overview of the Active Aging Society for those of you who maybe are new to our webinar or, series and who haven't joined us before. So the Active Aging Society promotes seniors' physical, social, and mental health across British Columbia and beyond. And it's our vision that older adults are supported to be active and connected in their lives. And many of you have participated in the Society's signature program, Choose to Move. If you have not yet, please visit the Choose to Move website for a list of our upcoming locations, both offered in person and virtually. And maybe my colleague Hanson can pop our locations page up on the website. Or in the chat. We'll have lots of new programs launching in the fall, and the fall is a great time to start new healthy habits. So feel free to bookmark that webpage and check back regularly. If you don't see your community on that list of upcoming links or upcoming programs, feel free to email us at connect@activeagingsociety.org, and we can try and put you as a dot on that map in the future. We are super grateful for the ongoing funding that we have received from the BC Ministry of Health and the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. And with our ongoing collaboration with the Active Aging research team at UBC. So as I've said before, many of you have joined our past webinars, and if that's the case, welcome back, and you know how this rolls. But if you're new, let me just go through a little bit of housekeeping and our agenda for today. So I know many people on the call today might not be familiar with Zoom, and if that's the case, don't feel overwhelmed. It's a pretty easy tool, and you have arrived, so you've made it this far. If you have questions that you want to pose, you can just pop them up into the chat bar, and the chat function is available at the middle of your screen at the very bottom on that black bar. And you can type in your questions in that chat, or you can use the Q&A function. Either way, we'll be monitoring both those options. And if you're having any technical difficulty throughout today, you can send a direct chat to Hanson, who will be monitoring any technical issues that come up. So our much anticipated presentation, I'll invite Sherry to just share her screen now and turn on her video. Sherry, as I mentioned, is now working in wellness promotion with New Caledonia, and she has worked as a registered dietitian with Northern Health. I'm really excited to have her here today to talk to us about diet and nutrition and enhancing how we can fuel our day with the foods that we consume. And I know Sherry's going to cover off some best practices and myths and hints and tips to to keep us well through our nutrition. So without further ado, Sherry, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And first of all, I just want to thank Sarah and Hanson for inviting me to be a part of this, and really exciting. And it's been great to work with you. And Sarah, just in following with your land acknowledgement, I wanted to also acknowledge the land that I live, work, and play on here in Prince George, in British Columbia. So I'd just like to respectfully acknowledge that I live, work, and learn on the unceded and occupied traditional territories of the Lheidli First Nations. And like Sarah had mentioned, I make this acknowledgement to remind myself and also to share and teach others about the significance of the Lheidli people's relationship to the land. And if it weren't for this land and its depossessions from the Lheidli people, we would not be here. So I'm really deeply honored and by the continued grace of the Lheidli people to work with all of us to decolonize our ways of knowing and being in this place. So thank you. So I'm very excited. It was a lot of fun to do this work in preparing this presentation, and so we'll have some time for questions at the very end, but I'm going to just dive right in and get started, and just let you know a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be learning about today. So basically, it's the why, the what, and the how in choosing a healthy eating pattern to optimize your lifestyle. And it's really about three things. I think you could break it down to easy ABCs or 1, 2, 3s, or however you like to think about it, but it's eating well, moving well, and being well. So we're going to explore those, and we have a short period of time, so we can't take a really deep dive, but I'm going to cover as best I can, and to offer you at the very outset some resources that I hope will be helpful to you. So we're going to learn about some of the latest research findings and what exactly that might mean to you in your lives and for your families and yourself. And I'd like to also, because this is eating well and like I said, moving well, are two things that are inextricably linked together. And so I don't think I can talk about food without also talking about how fitness and how movement fits in with function and health in maintaining and sustaining your quality of life and our quality of life overall. So but I mean, one of the realities of as well is that we're in a changing landscape over time, and there's been no other time in history that we can say that the population over the age of 65 is the largest that it's ever been. And in the past, it looked like more of a pyramid. So you probably had heard of people reference the pyramid of aging. Well, now it looks more like a platform. And if you can think of the game Jenga, you know, with all the blocks, it looks like a stack of Jenga blocks. And with the top of the Jenga blocks representing that population of 85 plus. And that population, remarkably, is the fastest growing segment. The unfortunate side of this, which is great news, is that the world overall is not ready for this. They're not prepared. So, but like I said, let's focus on the great part, the positive part. So, you know, I think that's really good news. And again, when we think of quantity of years, I also want to talk and focus a little bit on quality, and that's where eating well and moving well come in, because I don't know anyone who wants to be 100 years old and be in a wheelchair or in a long-term care facility. And I truly believe that 70 is the new 30. But it, like most things, doesn't happen without some effort and without some conscious conscious action. So think of it how glaciers and oceans can change landscapes over time. And so think about that and think about slow changes. A lot of times we live in a world where everything is fast. We stand at the microwave and it's not fast enough, or we complain that our computer is slow. Or how many times have you been on an elevator and watched somebody push the button 5 or 6 times over, or even at a street walk or at a crosswalk and push that button because it's not happening fast enough. But really, let's think and reverse that and think, these slow changes, and they may seem like they're glacial, or that there's, not a huge reaction that happens to your action, but it's really about embracing the journey and thinking about that journey of becoming. And it's not the end part, but the journey along the way. And so I'm really glad that you've joined in today. I'm honored that you've taken this time, because time is so valuable to invest in you. And when I wrap up at the end with a little story, I'd like to leave with you. It's not just about you, and I want you to think about that. It's about all the people who are part of your circle, part of your networks. Think about your family, your friends, your colleagues, and the neighbors, and all the people that love and care about you. And think about it. A lot of times, many of us are in retirement or approaching retirement. Think about what that looks like. You think about financial investments and how you're looking for that payoff at the very end. This is a payoff. It's an investment in yourself, and it will pay off dividends to yourself and to everyone around you. It's like that pebble that you drop into the water and it spreads ripples around you. But before we dive right into the meat of this, let's look at a few definitions I think that can set the stage for the discussion that I've planned ahead. So I wanted to talk a little bit and explain that there's a difference between lifespan and life expectancy. So lifespan is kind of the biologic age, or the predetermined age of an organism. And for most human beings, the lifespan, or that biologic age, is 120 years old. But life expectancy is a little bit different, because that's based on statistical variances. And so it can be based on, say, the region that you live in. It's calculated by the knowledge of death rates in the population. So, where you were born, where you live, what the environment's like. If we were in Las Vegas, people would call those odds. But in general, the average lifespan, or life expectancy, pardon me, for a woman is about 81.1 years, and for men, 76.1. But it's also based on your current age. And before we get too far, I have a question or something for you to think about. So what do you think? I put your answer in the chat, but I think we've got a poll. Hanson's got a poll for us. So if you reach the age of 65, you have a life expectancy of how many more years? What do you think? So once you reach that age of 65, oh, I'm watching the answers come in. Oh, we've got such a smart group of people. Everybody's got, yes, that looks great. So, has everybody been able to weigh in? Oh, I think we've got a couple more people weighing in. Has everybody had a chance? Still thinking? Okay. Well, I think I'm going to close down the poll. I don't think hopefully I'm not rushing anybody, but I'm going to say going once, going twice, Okay, gone. So we've had a few different people weigh in, saying 7.5 years, 10 years, 17.8. The answer actually is 20. So 20 plus years once you reach that age of 65. And that's, again, really good news. But it's one of those things where we ask ourselves the question of how we want to spend those 20 plus years. And I would think, like myself, I think about, I want to be in good health. I want to optimize my movement and my function as much as possible to optimize all of those things. Things that are important to you. So think of things that matter. Maybe you like to garden. So, being able to bend down, dig in the dirt. Maybe you have grandkids, or you want to be able to pick them up and play and run after them. That's important to you. Maybe you travel. So independently, you want to be able to put your luggage in that top, the luggage rack in the plane. And so, think of those things that are important to you, and why it's important to you, and what you want those 20 plus years to look like. And so we're going to go into this now and talk a little bit about that eat well piece. All right. So because that's definitely part of the equation. Eating well is going to help with health. It's going to help with reduction in things like chronic disease. So just wanted to ask a question and put it out there, pose the question of what that might mean to you. What does healthy eating mean to you? I think one of the things overall is that sometimes we can get, like the woman that's in the middle of this picture, we can get a little bit overwhelmed because there's so much information that's out there. I know that I live in a community where I think everywhere there's food that's available. Sometimes it's not the best or the most ideal choices for us, but there's lots of different foods that are available. Oh, somebody asked about repeat the difference between lifespan and life expectancy. Sorry, I just moved on and then I thought I'd take a look at the chat, so I apologize. Lifespan is the biologic age of an organism, how long that organism will exist. So for human beings, it's been determined that lifespan is up to 120 years of age, or years, whereas life expectancy is basically based statistically on death rates within populations. So dependent on where you might live, what environment you might live in, some of the socioeconomic aspects around what community or what region. So sometimes it can be a country, like countries might have a certain lifespan or life expectancy, but within that country there could be regions, and within a country, like for example, different parts of provinces. So even the province of British Columbia, if you break that down, life expectancy in different parts of the province can change. So I don't see anybody weighing in on what healthy eating means to them particularly, but let me just share what healthy eating means to me. And overall, it's about, first of all, enjoying the foods that I eat. I celebrate my culture, and so I am very happy and very fortunate to be able to enjoy, and have my children as well, enjoy trying new foods, enjoy being able to have accessibility to some of my favorite foods that take me back, or touchstones to my childhood in growing up. And I was raised by my grandma, so we had a very ethnic Asian diet. So I grew up as a Japanese with my grandmother. And so I got to eat a lot of traditional foods. And so that always brings me back to growing up, and it always makes me feel really happy as well. And when I share those foods with people and they enjoy them, I like that. So and overall, I don't really concentrate too much on what foods I'm eating, or the fact that I've heard some value statements put on food. And I don't think that there's good or bad foods. I think that all foods are can be a part of any eating pattern. And so I celebrate being able to try all foods, and being able to try different foods. So that's what healthy eating means to me. And yeah, I'd welcome it, you to share later. So if you want to think about that, but and I also really think that healthy eating is part of self-care. So nutrition plays a really important role in buffering adversity, building resilience, both physical and mental resilience, and plays a really critical role in improving health overall. So eating wholesome foods, healthy eating patterns, following those physical and mental health, that's really what well-being is all about. And self-care means paying attention to and supporting your own physical and mental health. And I wanted to share this quote from Dr. Nadine Burke, talking about research telling us that sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, and a nurturing environment can reduce stress hormones and enhance the ability of the brain to recover. So, that's really important. And it's you see that nutrition is one of those elements and strategies in terms of self-care that are really critical in times when we're facing adversity. And certainly we've come through some very adverse challenges, or some very significant challenges that have created adversity for many of us. And self-care is different to everybody. So sometimes it can be celebrating foods, or enjoying something that is like some special food, or it can be meditation, or it can be yoga. Research shows that the foods we put into our body directly impact us both physically and emotionally. I talked about celebrating food, and even when I talked about it, you probably saw that I got a bit animated and got excited. Sometimes even thinking or talking about what I'm going to make for dinner, I can get excited with my kids as we try to figure out what's going to be on the menu for later that day. I have a son who really gets excited about certain foods, always popping into the kitchen and seeing if it's done yet. So, okay, so let's dissect food and what it really is, healthy nutrition. And I want to remind you, though, that we talk about nutrients, and we talk about, like, say, for example, protein or carbohydrates, or vitamins and minerals. So certain vitamins like calcium, but those are really important. But I want to remind you that we eat food versus eating nutrients. And so what we're going to do, though, is we're going to break it down, and then we'll build it back up again. So what to eat? All right, so let's break it down. When you look at, this is the new food guide. It was modified again in 2019, and it's quite visual, so you can really see the food that's encompassed here. It's a little bit different than the representation that we saw before, and I think it really speaks volumes about looking at what your plate looks like, and how your plate is populated. So you can see here that there are distinct food groupings on that plate, And then when you think about the layout of the plate, you can see that there's a larger portion of that that's covered by some colorful, quite almost like a rainbow of different vegetables and fruits. And then over on that top right-hand corner, you can see some different protein sources like chicken and tofu, and dairy is also included there. And you can also see grains in that bottom right-hand corner. So, when we talk about foods and what they represent and all of the different food groups, they do break down to vitamins and minerals. And there are some typical areas as folks get older that can be problematic. And so that sometimes relates to physical changes. It sometimes can be related, whether that's medical or just the physiology of aging, or it can also be related to medications or supplements that people take. So we can talk a little bit about that as well as we continue on. But definitely one of the things here that's not depicted is milk, and that's included in the protein group because the dairy is a part of that. And one of the recommendations is that we hydrate. Water is the hydration vehicle of choice. So basically the key message or the takeaway that I'd like you to think about is half the plate or half of whatever plate that you've got in front of you should be covered by fruits and vegetables. And the more color and the more variety and the more of a rainbow that you have represented, the better it's going to be for you. And the reasons why we'll get into. And think of meat or think of protein foods more as a condiment, and don't be afraid of grains because they're very important. And we'll talk about that as well. So, like I said before, the more color and variety that you can get, the better it is. Fruits and vegetables are high in vitamins, minerals, fiber, and particularly high in something called phytochemicals. And phytochemicals are antioxidants. It's, when I walk into a supermarket, it's no mistake or no accident. Any supermarket that you walk into or I walk into, you're going to see a rainbow. This is what your plate actually looks like because that's what you're greeted with as you walk through the door. It's the produce area of the supermarket. And I always call that nature's pharmacy because that's such a great place to get all of this nutrient-rich food. Those antioxidants, what they do is they sacrifice themselves at the cellular level, and they help with disease prevention. They help with reducing inflammation. And I think of them as the ninja warriors who sacrifice themselves in the fight to protect the cells and the immune system function. The fiber as well that's found in vegetables and fruits is a little bit different from the fiber that's found in, say, for example, grains or that's found in whole grains or whole wheat. That's an insoluble fiber, which means it doesn't dissolve in water. Soluble fiber, like the fiber that's found in beans, peas, and lentils, helps with cholesterol levels. It helps, and it also, it's more like a sponge in that way. And it also can help with inflammation, like I said. So eating fruits and vegetables has been shown to be, based on evidence, a very strong correlation to lowering your risk of chronic disease. So we're talking about things like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. So very, very strong support in the research for eating vegetables and fruits. Unfortunately, if you're like most Canadians, you probably don't eat the amount of vegetables and fruit that you need to. The number one vegetable and fruit that Canadians eat are potatoes, and they're not steamed, boiled, or mashed. So They're usually found crisped in a bag or sometimes julienned and found at a drive-through window. So, but again, I digress. We're going to move on to grains and talk a little bit more about fiber, because Canadians, again, aren't getting the amount of fiber that they need. We need about 30 grams of fiber a day. And I don't know if you've tried to look at some of the labels or tried to read through, but 30 grams can be, that can be sometimes a little bit of a task or challenge to get. Let's put it into perspective. If you had a loaf of bread and you looked at the label on your loaf of bread, sometimes it's 2, maybe 3 grams of fiber, depending on the type of bread that it is. So you can imagine if you need 30 grams, there's a little bit more. You wouldn't eat the whole loaf. So there's other places that you need to look to get that fiber intake for the day. So where does fiber come from? Whole grain foods definitely are a healthier choice than refined grains, because whole grains have the whole part of the grain, whereas refined grains have that outer husk, usually removed during processing. And whole grain foods will have more fiber than refined grains. Eating foods that are higher in fiber has statistically and through research been shown to lower your risk of, again, those chronic illnesses, things like colon cancer, stroke, heart disease, type 2 diabetes. So when you're choosing grains, make sure that your choices are actually whole grain, because sometimes you need to read the labels, that it might be something that might be a color where they add some caramel coloring, but it's not exactly whole grain. So look and see. Usually it's the first 3 ingredients on the label of your food that contains about 80% of whatever the product is. So make sure that one of those first foods or first ingredients is a whole grain, and use that nutrition fact label to look at how much fiber that you're going to be gaining. And fiber also functions, we're not going to talk a whole lot about it because that's another topic that we can get into in some more detail. But fiber functions as a prebiotic, and you may have heard about prebiotics and probiotics, and that area of function for fiber really lends itself to gut health, to supporting brain function, and so inulin, chicory root fiber, those types of things are fibers that act as prebiotics. One of the tips that I always use that I think is so great is, and it's so easy, and it's such a it's a minefield of fiber, are those little bran buds, because you can put them into salads, you can put them into yogurt, and they add a real supply of fiber and flavor, and a little bit of texture as well to whatever you're eating. I enjoy putting them in yogurt, so that's something I would recommend. Let's look at protein. So protein foods. Again, protein there's animal-based proteins, so like beef, poultry, fish, eggs, yogurt, and then there's also plant-based proteins, which are becoming more popular, and things like legumes, like beans, peas, and lentils, tofu, edamame, veggie burgers, hummus, and those non-meat plant sources are usually lower in animal fats, and they can be a great source of protein at usually a lower cost, particularly when you think of beans, peas, and lentils. And getting enough protein is really important, especially for older adults, because what the research is finding is, particularly as people age, they actually need a little bit more protein. So where we're talking about maybe 0.8 grams of protein per day to promote muscular health. Once you get past 50, 65, in order to maintain or regain that same muscle mass, you need slightly more protein, so 1 gram to 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight. So that can be quite significant. And it's recommended about 25 to 30 grams of protein in a meal. And I'm going to be sending out some information on what protein looks like and how much 25 grams is. But if you think of, say like the palm of your hand for a piece of meat or poultry, that's about 30 grams. So that's, that's a good size portion and a good contribution to protein. Couple of boiled eggs, really great as well. And so it's really what I would recommend is a food first approach to getting your protein into your diet, that you don't actually need to be looking at protein powders or protein supplements, and really think of protein rich lean meats, particularly seafood, which I would recommend to try to get 1 to 2 seafood meals. Fatty fish, in fact, is recommended because of the fact that seafood has some protective benefits beyond just the protein contribution, but the fat in the fish provides some particular benefit as well. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that coming up as well. So I wanted to flip the switch. And so that's about the 4 food groups. But of course, water, if you look at the actual food guide, there's a little glass and it's pictured on the right-hand corner of the food guide, and it shows a glass of water because we're really recommending hydration as being very important, just as important as food, if not even more so, because of course you can go for many days without having food, but you can only go for a short period of time without having fluids. So it's a forgotten nutrient and topic. There's a lot of myths around it, in terms of how much you need. Should you drink when you're wait and drink only when you're thirsty? Should you be having extra water if you have coffee or tea? What about all the beverages when you go into a supermarket and you look at that and you see all of those choices, vitamin waters, alkaline waters, special spring waters. So definitely, again, there's the hydrating quality of water and that's very important. But one of the things that Dr. Bob Murray talked about was he called the human body a leaky bag of water with legs. We lose a lot of water, and as we age, we have less body water, we have decreased sensations of thirst, medications that people take can waste water, and dietary supplements can also influence hydration status too. So there's a bunch of multiple issues there. I've got a short video just on water and how important it is. So I'm just going to play that. How important it is to stay hydrated, and ask the question, are you drinking enough water? It's just about 2 minutes.
And Sherry,
yes,
I'm just thinking, in the interest of time, because we do want to be able to get to some questions, maybe we can send the videos around as a link.
Sure.
So I know you still have a couple of really important topics to touch on, and I know we want to get to a few questions. So
sure. Okay.
Does that work?
Absolutely. Okay, we can do that because I had a couple of quick videos, but we can skip over them because I'm looking at the time too, Sarah, and I'm trying to fit it all in. So just some check-ins for yourself. Think about when you're when you should be drinking. Are you thirsty, weak, dizzy, lightheaded? Do you have headaches, dry mouth, nausea, burning sensation in your stomach? Are you not peeing a whole lot? Those are all check-ins to say, maybe those are signs of dehydration. You might be less alert, not being able to concentrate. It might even affect your blood sugar. You might find that your lips are chapped, your skin gets dry. You might be constipated. Some people get bad breath because of, or have halitosis because of reduced saliva, and your mouth and your tongue can sometimes feel dry and sticky. So those are definitely some things to check in with. And my recommendation is to drink before you're thirsty, because if you wait that long, you might already be dehydrated. And one of the things just to remind yourself is that hydration never takes a vacation. It doesn't matter what climate you live in, what the temperature is, that hydration can always be an issue. I just walked into the coffee room here at work, and one of my colleagues said, oh, I've got this headache and it's right in the middle of my forehead, like right in between the eyes. I just know I'm dehydrated. And so of course she knows she has to hydrate. But one of the ways that you can tell is just by taking a look in the bowl after you urinate and looking at the color of your urine. And so that lemonade color is optimal hydration. And I think it's weird that, maybe it's not weird, but I really get happy when I see that the color of my urine is lemonade color. I'm like, yeah, I'm hydrated, not dehydrated. So water is one way, but one of the things that I wanted to also let you know is that you can eat your water. There's a lot of hydrating foods that are out there, and some different ways to get your water in. Like watermelon, for example, is such a great fruit this time of year because it's 93% water, and you also get great nutrients like vitamins and minerals, lycopene and various other nutrients, with your added benefit of hydration. Infused water is so great. Cutting up cucumbers or cutting up some oranges and just putting them into your water to flavor your water is great. Making sure that you've got some cut up veggies and fruit just ready to go. I know that in my household, I can leave a watermelon whole in the fridge, or even half cut. And unless I cut it up, I'm not sure what this says about my kids, but it doesn't get eaten. So I've tried that experiment. Grilled pineapple, peaches. Oh, they're so good on the barbecue. I love adding blueberries and raspberries to my salads. You can add veggies if you're making scrambled eggs or greens to your smoothies. Sliced cucumbers and greens always to wraps and sandwiches, add some crunch and texture. And again, are other ways where you can start to eat your water. I'm making myself hungry as I'm talking about this, but I wanted to talk about snacking too, because there were some questions about blood sugar and making sure that you're really hungry. So one of the things too is it might not be hunger, it might be dehydration. So think about trying to have some snacks in between your meals, and that helps with maintaining your mood, your mental clarity, and also your metabolism. And for those folks who ask questions about prediabetes or diabetes, think about making sure, and actually for everybody, make sure that you're not just having one thing like like just a muffin. See if you can smear your muffin with a little bit of peanut butter, adding some yogurt, because what you're doing there is you're taking and adding protein and carbohydrate together, and that's going to sustain your blood sugar levels. And also think about portioning, putting things into Ziplocs or plates or bowls versus having a big bag for snacks. And that is a great way to have your snacks ready to go if you pre-portion them and pre-package them. And don't just snack, like I said, because it's part of a daily routine. Make sure that you're actually feeling hungry and it's not that you're thirsty. And I'm going to skip over that video. That video, for those of you who may have seen it, is just Betty White, and it's a Snickers commercial, but it really makes a point of you don't want to let yourself be hangry. You want to make sure that you're always having snacks that are available and on the go, something that's going to sustain your blood sugar levels. And this graph shows that what we eat or don't eat can really affect blood sugar levels. So that particular person is just having some jam or just having a piece of fruit at breakfast time. And what you can see is that the blood sugar level goes up, but then it comes back down again. When the blood sugar level comes down and they're prompted with some hunger, they reach for coffee and a muffin. Blood sugar levels goes up again and comes back down. But what you can see is when you add protein in with it, like a whole wheat toast with some egg, apple with some nuts, you can see a nice sustained blood sugar curve. And that's going to lend itself to a better mood. You're going to have more energy, and it's going to sustain your blood sugar over time. So we talked about eating well. I just wanted to briefly touch on moving well and some of the benefits of physical activity. So I want you to think about benefits of movement and to celebrate that, and think about what motivates you to be more than physically active. Let's put another way and talk about being less sedentary. So we do sit a lot, and sometimes we think that that half hour or an hour of whatever we do gives us the license to then sit on the couch or sit in front of the computer for the next sustained period of time. And in fact, that's not necessarily the case. But what I'd like you to think of is by being less sedentary. So less sedentary, think about, and we just talked about snacks, food snacks. I want you to think about energy snacks. So things that you could do, like put a song on the radio, or put a song on your iPhone, and one of your favorite tunes, and just dance like no one's watching. And that's a great energy snack. Parking further away, getting up and taking a little walk around, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. You know what? It makes such a huge difference in energy output. They did a study years ago where, I don't know if any of you remember, but those old Smith Corona typewriters, I had one that my grandfather had, and so I ended up inheriting it. And I actually wrote my first college papers on that Smith Corona. So you would pound it out, and then you would hit the bar and it would swing over, and then you would pound some more and it swing. Well, by the time you got a page typed, oh my goodness. Well, they did a study where they looked at admin assistants, and they looked at the difference between when they made the transition between typing with those old typewriters, Smith Corona type typewriters, to touch typing, an electronic, not the keyboards that we have today, the digital ones and everything, but that transition. They found a 5-pound weight difference in a year that couldn't be attributed to anything else other than that incidental energy expenditure. So you know what? Energy snacks add up. They make a big difference, your physical snacks. So like I said, try activity snacks. Try to be active cumulatively for about 30 minutes a day. Think about the different things that you can do. Break up your day. Even if you've got an iPhone, add a reminder to get up and stretch or get up and move. Things that you do, think about boosting your heart rate. So there's cardiovascular, that gets your heart going. There's flexibility and stretching, and there's strength. All three of those components are equally as important, but think about, you don't have to have a fancy heart rate monitor. You can think about, can you talk normally? Is your heart starting to pump really fast? That's more moderate. And then challenging is when you can't carry on a conversation with yourself or anybody else with you. So strength training is also important. So cardiovascular, that's getting your heart going, and then stuff where you're working with resistance. Body weight is great resistance. You don't have to go to a gym. You can do things with your body that push-ups, lunges, squats, all of those compound movements are so great. One of the things about, and this was a study that was done by Stanway about how fast does the Grim Reaper walk. Well, the best tip ever is to avoid early death is to be able to run faster or move faster than the Grim Reaper. And that, according to the study, is about 2 miles per hour. That's not a whole lot, but think about somebody who's starting to get frail or starting to not move as well. Mobility may be an issue. That can become more difficult, but that's a good goal to aim for, a little bit faster than the Grim Reaper. That stuff with cardiovascular is going to be helpful, but also sarcopenia is called vanishing flesh. And you can see this cross section of a leg muscle. It's a 25-year-old versus a 63-year-old. And you can see that loss of muscle mass over that period of time. The CT scan of that thigh muscle is quite remarkable. And it's said today that 70-year-olds are 30% weaker than they were at age 50. And that's really, really a big drop for just 20 years. And so definitely resistance training is how we can combat that. So versus a downward spiral with the dominoes of aging, let's think of an upward spiral and start to think of incorporating some of the tips that I've mentioned to you. And it's never, ever, ever, never too late to eat well, move well, and be well. And so I just wanted to share, this is a photo of my grandmother. She passed away when she was 99 years old. She actually had a total hip replacement at age 80. Now that's pretty remarkable. She'd fallen out of bed and fractured her hip. She had a cardiovascular incident at the same time. The prognosis was really poor. I was actually studying back east and ended up coming home. I had a job and everything secured, but you know, things happen for a reason. So I ended up coming back to British Columbia. I looked after my grandma, and they didn't want to do the surgery. There was nothing that they could, they needed to do a hip replacement, but they just hesitated because she was very small. There wasn't weight that she could lose. There wasn't a medication that she could take that was going to change her blood pressure, because that's what the issue was. To put her on the operating table would have been probably fatal. So they told her, well, Mrs. Ogasawara, the only thing that you could do is you need to change your diet. And so we'll see if changing your diet can reduce your blood pressure. So she started eating tofu, white rice, low sodium soy sauce. And she would sit there and complain to me that nothing tasted good. I'd rather be dead. Everything tastes so bad, she would say to me. And I just like, Grandma, just eat your rice, you'll be fine. And she was like, I'd rather be dead. I want to go see Grandpa. And I'm like, well, you didn't even really like him. So just eat that, or at least that's what she told me. I'm sure she did. But so she changed her diet at age 80, 88 actually. And because of that, she was able to get a total hip replacement. She started out on a walker, and then progressed to a 3-pronged cane, and then a cane, and then nothing else. She was able to mobilize and ambulate until, like I said, she gave us 11 more years of being with us and being a part of our family by the lifestyle changes that she made. And it was never too late, because it made such a huge difference. So whatever you can do with whatever means that you have available to you, I encourage you to optimize. And that makes such a difference, not only to yourself, but to those who are around you and your family, friends, like I said before, when I opened this up. So
Hey, Sherry,
yes.
that I think that is a beautiful place to pause. And I would love how we kind of have circled back to, the importance of nutrition, but also the importance of being connected and thinking about, your community and how you manage and maintain your health. And I know that you've very generously agreed to sharing your slides as a resource on our webpage when we do put up the recording. Did you have like one or two kind of closing remarks that you wanted to make before I maybe just pull one or two questions out?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to wrap this up, just to let you know that genetics, it doesn't define your destiny. You can change anything just because a family history says something. It doesn't matter. You can change it. Be intense. So, and what I mean by that is not to be intense or aggressive, but that be intense with your nutrition. Your energy needs are going to be lower, but your nutrient needs are going to be the same or higher. So make sure that you get intense nutrition with whatever you eat, and be well. Get good sleeps. That's so important. Deal with your stress, the three S's, and get social. So stay connected with people, not just on Facebook, but in real life, in 3D.
Yeah, I love that. The three S's: social, stress, and sleep, and addressing those. And you know, what stood out to me too, and as you spoke, was the importance of making, you know, food and eating experiential, you know, the sharing of it. And that actually can be very satiating when we are taking the time to prepare the food and enjoy it with other people. I am not going to do justice to the flood of questions that we had in on our chat and that we did receive, but I think it tells us, Sherry, that we have to have you back again. And I will just put two quick questions to you. Can you overhydrate? Can you overwater? And can you share just a couple of tips around the inflammation diet or eating for inflammation? Because we had a lot of questions come in prior to the webinar about that.
Yes, and thanks, Sarah. Yes, you can overhydrate, but it's very, very difficult to do. It usually happens in more of a psychiatric mental health setting where somebody does that. You can become, it can create psychosis, and it can actually be fatal. So you could overhydrate. In terms of hydration, for most people, it's usually not an issue. So not to worry. In terms of inflammation, definitely some of the things that I talked about are very important. I mentioned when we talked about protein, about seafood, and making sure that you include seafood. Why that's important is because omega-3s are really important in helping to reduce that inflammatory response, and particularly fats like fish oils, like olive oils. Try to be careful of fats like from ultra processed foods. So I think of like saturated fats, or maybe you've heard of trans fats. So those fats can create inflammation. Other fats, like those that are found in those oils or in those foods that I mentioned, things like avocados, nuts, those are all anti-inflammatory. And I did mention that rainbow of vegetables and fruits. Getting those can be very anti-inflammatory because the fact of the matter is that they contain antioxidants, and those are anti-inflammatory as well. So just a couple of suggestions there for you.
Perfect. And just knowing your long history of working with the Northern Health Authority, maybe what I'll suggest to our listeners is to reach out to your public health unit and gain access to the dietitians who are in those clinics and can provide some tailored direction for some of those specific questions that did come in. It does sound like nutrition can be a great solution to some of the ailments that we all experience as we age. And so there's a resource ready in your community. You know, might take a few weeks or months to get that appointment, but like you said, go slow. You know, your glacial, you know, pace. You're going to, you know, get to your destination. It doesn't have to be in a hurried way. I am going to just pop up in the chat the link to our Move and Connect webinars, where Sherry's presentation, recording, resources, you know, the videos we didn't get to see will be linked. And I also included the Connect at Active Aging Society or email address, and you can pop in a note there if you would like to see Choose to Move come to your community. If it's not already been there, let us know. We will have an expression of interest form live on our website in the coming days, but just wanted to give all of our listeners now that chance to express that interest. And A huge thank you, Sherry. It's been such a delight to have you on this afternoon and to prepare for this webinar. We hope we can have you back again. And thanks for sharing your knowledge and enthusiasm for this this kind of intervention in healthy lifestyles.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
We're gonna sign off and stay tuned for our next webinar. I hope to be coming back to you again sometime soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you.